Welcome to another big episode of the Card Authority. As we all know, it's Tiger time. It has been a huge week. I think it's always a good time to bring in my co-host, the one and only AJ.
G'day.
Hey, mate. It's been a big week. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, but look at you all decked out in your Tigers gear. It's not just the background hanging off the roof anymore, off the ceiling. It's your whole get-up. Is that like a Hawaiian shirt with Tigers print all over it, mate? What's going on there?
There is actually an Hawaiian shirt version of this, but no, this is more I'd call the bowling shirt version. Insane that the AFL shop was selling these for just $7, 90% off a week before the grand final. Makes no sense. It feels like it's at least an $11 shirt. So look, it's Tiger time. You've got to embrace these. When you're part of a dynasty, and obviously, being the number one ticket holder, you've got to make sure you get around the boys. And look, I'm not going to say it was all me, but I'm an intricate part to this. You know what I mean? I messaged Koch the night before, and wished him good luck. And look, I'll be honest, I was a little bit flat that he didn't, give me a bit of a shout out up on the podium, but it's fine. I don't need those public. Yeah, I don't need those bits of public affirmation.
Very nice. What a huge thing, obviously, for the Tigers. Massive for Dustin Martin. Not big news for St Kilda, was it? But obviously a huge win for the Tigers, and so many records broken and records set, I suppose, with that, with respect to football and AFL history. And obviously that's going to translate in some way, shape or form across to the merchandise and collectibles market. And that, of course, includes trading cards and AFL trading cards. So there's certainly, I'm sure, some synergies there between the ongoing success of the club and what is happening and will continue to happen. You would say the Tigers cards, but probably to more of an extent to Dusty's cards. Do you want to maybe speak to that for a minute if you can, AJ?
Well, I think we talked about this prior to the grand final, or maybe it was a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember. What do we show 10? It might have been sort of show 7 or 8. We talked about the possibility of, actually no, it was the week before the grand final, that if someone comes out and plays a ripping game, does that elevate the price of their cards? And I think, obviously Dusty won his third Norm Smith. He's won his third grand final. That's probably the most obvious person to talk about early on. I don't know. Look, I guess from a perspective, I've been messaged by a lot of people wanting to buy Dusty cards this week. And there doesn't seem to be so many around. There were a couple of cheapies around a couple of weeks ago. And when I say cheap, I saw a couple of Dusty Dominances for like $1,100-ish on eBay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gone now. I think the cheapest one you can find online is about $1,700. So, I sort of joked with a mate the other day that, or today even it was, that I think I could go and post one up at almost any price at the moment, and it's going to get at least some strong offers, if not purchased pretty quickly. It seems everyone wants to buy the top end Dusty cards.
I think it's all Dusty cards. I don't think it's just the top end. You can look, there's a massive surge going on everything. And look, it's interesting at the moment that I'm sort of been tracking it for the last few days as to what's going on with his cards, whether that's on Facebook but predominantly more on eBay. We're obviously seeing a massive sell-through rate at the moment, but the numbers some of those cards are going for at the moment is quite astronomical. They were already high before the weekend, and that's just taken it to another level. And I get that. The guy was already a proven superstar, is now winning 3 Norm Smiths, and again just demonstrating his capability to win the big games and the biggest games. He'll go down as one of the greatest of all time with respect to Richmond, and potentially one of the greatest of all time in terms of AFL history. He may not be the most known amongst media circles, and we obviously don't see him in many interviews or any of that sort of stuff either, but his on-field performance is a real demonstration of his brand power as well. He's not just a good player, he is a brand in himself, as everyone knows, and as a result of that polarizing aspect of him will always make his items collectible, will always have kids wanting to be Dustin Martin and to wear Dustin Martin and to reference Dustin Martin. And I think there might be a bit of a hysteria right now. I'm sure there probably is to some sort of extent, but I would think long term his cards just continue to go up and up and up and up and up. I've done a little bit of card authority test, mate, that you might not be aware of actually, and the listeners definitely won't be aware of this, or maybe a couple of them have tuned into it. But for market research purposes, for card authority, I've thrown together a bunch of Dustin Martin cards and I've put them on eBay at a 99-cent no reserve. But what I've done specifically is I put one decent card in there, which is a highlight card, so still nothing extravagant like a $20 card or whatever. And then I've surrounded it with a bunch of various base cards of his from the last couple of years, as well as a Zebra die cut. And the reason I've done it is, no, I'm not trying to just like bank and make profits or something on it. The reality is it's not going to go for that much money. But I want to see the difference between what happens with a listing like that now versus what was the market for those base cards and those common cards beforehand. And I can tell you it's still got 3 days to go. And I can already see, based on the amount of watchers, but also the amount of actual bidders on the thing, the individual bidders, and that they don't correlate with normal people that would be buying cards off, when I randomly list cards on eBay. The conclusion that I'm coming to is, because of Dusty's performance again in the grand final, you all of a sudden have a whole bunch of random Tigers supporters, probably kids, adults, and everything in between, who all of a sudden are just jumping on eBay trying to find Dustin Martin stuff, whether that's a Dusty poster, a footy card, a jersey, whatever it is, and they're just buying it up. And that's indicative of how people end up becoming card collectors. One of those, there might be, I think there's 10 different bidders or something like that. So there might be 10 people that know nothing about footy cards. They just went on eBay to try to find something Dusty. They end up winning a Dusty auction on some Dusty footy cards, and then they want to explore more Dusties. So they look at more Dusty cards and they move into Richmond cards, and maybe they move on to Kocha, whatever it is. And then the next thing you know, in 2 months' time, they're card collectors. This is part of how it happens and how we pick up new participants into the hobby. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, that'd be an interesting test case, and certainly be interesting to see how that goes in the next couple of days. I certainly noticed lots of lower end insert cards. So, the reds, the hollows, all those sorts of things, going for some silly numbers, the day after the grand final. So I think obviously there's a few people there trying to cash in on it, I guess, a little bit. But yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting sample over the next little while to see whether or not those Richmond and Dusty cards hold their value. And I mean, that actually probably segues into a nice thing that I wanted to talk about tonight was, and I'm kidding you on the spot here, we didn't talk about this, but let's talk a little bit about Premiership Predictors. So obviously in the last couple of years, you could effectively pick up even the Richmond ones, for example, from 2017 and 2019. You could probably pick them up for about $170, $200 redeemed. Because there were so many of them. I think there was like 400-ish each year, something like that.
400 of each one, wasn't it? 400 silver, 400 gold. And then,
maybe 350 each.
Or something. But then that prior one, I think it was 17, was it? There was 800 of them, wasn't there?
I don't have one near me, so I can't really check. But there were big numbers. But I guess the point is that they were relatively cheap and very accessible. Whereas I'm sure you noticed, like I did, the 24 hours or the 48 hours after the grand final, people were not only trying to acquire them for $100, which was laughable, but on the flip side, people were trying to sell them for like $400, $500, which I thought was probably laughable as well. I doubt any were probably sold at that price.
Oh, I think you'd be surprised. There's a lot of people that collect cards. They don't necessarily look at the values of them. They just want them, and they're not part of the, we'll call it the more astute Facebook base of people and social media based collectors.
True.
And yeah, so with the predictors, look from memory and my experience, the premiership predictors from any given year previously, especially with the high numbering, have sort of gone anywhere in like that 80 to 150 sort of range. I feel like the Tigers ones from 2019 were pretty solidly moving around the 120, 130 mark at one point, in general terms. These ones, I've seen them actually moving in the 200 to 250 range comfortably over and over and over again. But as you said, I've seen them listed for 400, 450, I think was the ceiling that I saw on them. I'm not sure if any have actually sold, but I would presume they possibly have. But also, it's a reflection of a few different things. We're in a different space at the moment. We're talking about cards that have lower numbering, so they're much rarer. There's certainly not as many around. They switched into Series 1 and weren't part of Series 2. So as a result of that, you've got a whole bunch of them that will never see the light of day because they were picked up by kids, they were destroyed, they're in drawers somewhere, whatever it may be. So the rate of the redemption, I would think that only probably 50%, 60% of them in total will actually get redeemed. So it's 100. Was it 175? Is it 175 of each of them? Is that the number on these current?
I don't know if my folder's accessible. I'm sure someone will tell us in chat how many cold there were, how many silver there were.
I think it's 175 of each, so 350 total. Let's say only 50% get redeemed. We're talking about only 175 cards in existence that are part of a multi-card signature redemption set. So, and we're talking about it, this is 2020 now. We're experiencing this massive card boom at the moment. So base level and benchmark pricing from the outset was always going to start higher, just like what happened with dominance. It starts higher. It's all going to start higher, and it will also end up finishing at a higher. There'll be higher highs, but also higher lows, if that makes sense as well. Yeah, Martin Davis picked up one at 100. Oh, they're numbered to 140. Yeah. And I know Martin's probably one of Marty. I have to say, Marty's a bit of an outlier. And I'm sure it's due to how much goodwill he has within the community, the legend. But I know that Martin, the day after the grand final, managed to pick up the predictors at very amazing prices, and I can't imagine anyone else would get them at those prices either. So.
Well, always good that they end up in the hands of collectors and not people trying to flip them. So that's always good. Well done, Marty. And look, I guess this sort of segues me to a couple of different things that now that people have seen that the value of these cards, call it the Tiger tax, whatever bullshit you want to call it, do you think now they become just like the Brownlow predictors in future series? Now people are going to be a lot more conscious about trying to hold the key teams and the key players, because instead of them being $100 card, they might be $400 cards now. So there's more, I guess, more desire or more redeemable upside.
Yeah, look, I think speculation's always been there. Normally, what I have found a lot of collectors will do, and even like team collectors will actually, in terms of Brownlows, because they're busting so much stock throughout the season, especially Series 1 with Brownlow predictors, they're holding the top 3, 4, 5 favourites for the year and offloading everything else in the hope that one of those hits. I don't do that. I tend to move them along pretty early because I have no major interest in them. But I suppose your question is, do I think there's going to be more people speculating both Brownlow predictors and Premiership predictors, which are performance-based? Their redemption is based on outcomes. Yeah, probably slightly more, but I think it's also it'll be reflective that there's more participation in the hobby now and more people in the hobby than what there was previously. It's always been there. There's always the chase for Brownlow predictors and the seasonal fluctuations, the week-to-week fluctuations has always been there. And I dare say Brownlow predictors and Premiership predictors to an extent, but more the Brownlow predictors, especially early in the season, they fluctuate more than any other type of AFL card. There's no other cards that have movements like they do, and there's no other cards that can be worth so much and then so little.
Absolutely.
Look at the beginning of the season, the Danger Platinums and Cripper Platinums and stuff like that were moving, $300 to $500 a piece. They're now what, $100 cards or something like that.
Oh well, I mean they're really worth zero. They're just a face card. Do you know what I mean? I think I talked to you about.
It's still a card number to 60 though. Like in the context of a team set collector, they still need the card.
That's true.
Still only is 60. So there's a flip side to that. It's there's the argument predictors are worthless for the person who doesn't. If it's not the winner, they're worthless. But the counter argument is, well, technically they're still a numbered card for a player or team, and as a result, people need those cards. So their rarity is actually based on their numbering as well.
Okay, well, this is again a nice accidental segue, or from your smirk, you probably know where I'm going to head with this. So I pose this scenario to you. Well, it's not even a scenario. This happened during the week. As many people will know, Dusty Green was one of my very first unicorns, and really, to be honest, the thing that gave birth to the whole unicorn hunting segment. This was the original heritage. I saw a Dusty Green appear on eBay this week for $1,100. Now, for people that don't know about the greens from Prestige, they're numbered to 60. Dustin Martin was incredibly hard to get. For ages they were sort of $300, $400, $500 and would snap sell if they showed up. Even now, you just cannot put your hands on it. They are a true unicorn. So we look at the Dustin Martin green, which is selling for $1,100, and I got flooded with messages, as you would have as well. Look at this price. It's horrendous. But then let's have a look at a Dustin Martin dominance, which is numbered to 60. It's priced, let's call it at $1,500 or $1,700 at the moment. And now, as you segued in, the Dusty Brownlow Platinum that is numbered to 60. What is really the difference between those three cards? They're all Dustin Martin. They're all numbered to 60. Should they be the same price? You're the pricing guru. Tell me.
All right. So there's a number of different considerations. The reality is, let me preface this with, I can't tell you what that card is worth, because the card is ultimately, it's worth what people are prepared to pay for it. It's how many people want and need that card, and to what extent are they prepared to battle it out financially. Now, if we want to look at the fundamental aspects of how we perceive cards to be valued and how market prices are set for cards, we need to look at a few things here. The underlying factor is all three of those cards we're talking about now, the Prestige Green, the Platinum Brownlow Predictor, and the Dominance card. At the end of the day, Dustin Martin and those cards each are numbered to 60. So there's no more than 60 that were created or that exist. Okay, so let's look at that as the underlying, the underlying thing here is there is still only 60 of each of those individual cards. And now let's start to break down the difference between these things. Well, the Dominance card is a case hit. There's one per case, one per 12 boxes, and it's from a set of only 18 cards in total. Whereas the greens, I think, are part of an 11 cards. I think every team has 11 of them.
11,
and they are they're box hits. So a green, in broad terms, it's much easier to hit a green card. However, it's not easier to attain a green Dustin Martin card or any particular individual green card. Collectively, you can acquire more greens, and that's why people perceive the value to be lower. But on an individual basis, at the end of the day, if there's 80 people that want all three of those Dustin Martin cards, well, they're all numbered the same. So they should be just as hard to acquire. They're all from a Series 2 product, or obviously the Predictor is from Prestige, which is still a hobby product. So the likeliness is that 90% plus at one point or another were in the hands of hobbyists. And as a result of that, the number of 60 is pretty true with all three of those two cards and their attainability. But technically, if there's 60 Dusty between team collectors and Dustin Martin player collectors, if there's 60 of them, 60 people out there that want the card, Well, they could all end up pricing the same. The reason they don't price the same, and the factors would be, is the perception that one's a box hit and one's a case hit and one's a 1 in 3 box hit or 1 in 4 box hit, whatever those predictors are. But in reality, the physical card itself, for each of them, there's only the same amount of money. Now, with regards to $1,100 and how that card is priced, I'm learning over, especially the last few months, to tame myself with regards to having a go at other people about prices or belittling people on prices with respect to single cards or with respect to items that are secondary market items based on supply and demand. I'm not talking about someone that's price gouging the shit at 400% out of a packet of top loaders or something like that. I'm talking about cards themselves. And the other aspect, as Asher has said and a couple of other people have said, is the quality of the card itself, the look of the card, the physicality of the card, the print, the material, and everything else associated with it. Absolutely. And, people who've tuned in before often hear me harp on about Supremacy and the superior quality of Supremacy in terms of the physical card itself compared to everything else. So, yeah. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I'm not going to knock the $1,100 list price. All I'm going to say is that if 100% of people that are interested in a Dustin Martin green card all think $1,100 is crazy, the card will never sell. If one person comes along and says, well, I don't care what it costs, I want the card, well, the card sells for $1,100, and then what happens tomorrow? The next one that gets listed at a starting at $1,100. And then, that buyer, seller, supply, demand battle then kicks in, and it's who's going to concede. Is a seller going to concede to downward pressure, or is a buyer going to pay more for upwards pressure? At the moment, the demand on Dusty cards is massive. Unless someone else turns up with a bunch of greens to put on eBay at lower prices, we may well be sitting here in 2 months going, wow, a Dusty green sold for somewhere between $700 and $1,100.
Yeah, I guess the thing is, listening, and obviously I'm a numbers and data guy, and working backwards on what you said a little bit there, the difference between case hits and box hits. In theory, on the maths of a Dusty dominance card, you should hit one every 9 cases, because it's effectively 1 in 9 that you're going to be hitting Richmond in every case. Yeah. I know it doesn't work out that way, but in theory, that's kind of what the raw number is.
Yeah. You could.
Yeah, of course. But with the Dusty green, for example, let's say there's 1 a box. Sometimes there's 2, but let's just say there's 1 a box. Effectively one every 12. Or sorry, there's 12 greens in a case, but you've got 18 teams times 11 players. The actual chance to hit a Richmond one is 1 in 18. Then you've got 1 in 11 of that percentage. Like it seems like there's even less.
More stock. You would have to open more sealed stock to find one. Yeah, that's right. You would have to buy more of the production run and open more of the production run. Yeah, spot on.
But then on that logic, and again, it's donkey Richmond logic. Does that mean then the green is actually harder to get than the Dusty dominance?
You could, yeah. Look, I think it's like everything else, like with voting, elections.
Don't get started on that.
Anything to do with numbers.
I've defriended people over this week. All right, yeah. we don't need to.
Anything to do with numbers. The way a perception can be created around something seeming rarer than something else based on the parameters being presented in front of your eyes. Without going through the hard mathematics on paper about the percentages and everything to do with these particular cards based on their print runs and everything else, and I'm not obviously going to do it right now in real time. They're all rare cards. I'm going to say they're all very rare, and there's still only 60 of each. Every other factor involved in the situation still doesn't change the bottom line that there's only 60 of each, and whether all 60 of one type came out of one case or they're spread between 500 cases, there's still only 60 of them. So once they come out of a sealed packet and they enter the marketplace on the secondary market and they start to move around and change hands, they'll never be at more than 60. They'll only become less. because of ones that get lost and damaged and stolen and whatnot. So, yeah,
Yep.
there's still that's what I want to remind people. And it's like, I found it really funny like that. Here's a good example. There's cards numbered to 60 that I can attain right now and pay anywhere between St Kilda cards between $40 and $100 every day of the week, modern cards, right? But then a couple of weeks ago, I managed to get my hands on some 2003 Select Scanlens, which was an official release of where Select licensed and collaborated with Scanlens, and they released some cards. They were numbered to 60, but the difference was you have to purchase them as a full set. So every card, you got 2 players from each team, and every single card that you got from your set had the same number. Now, because they came in sets like that, it's very hard to find any individual players or teams on the market because the people who originally attained them or obtained them or purchased them, whatever, bought them as full sets. Now, I got really lucky that someone, in order to get the ones they needed for their personal collection, they purchased the full set off someone and then broke it down. But the reality is those cards numbered to 60 cost me a lot more than a modern card numbered to 60 because of the way they were released. However, there's still 60 of those, and there's 60 of a Tim Membry High Flyer, for example, So it's, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, Steve, or Stephen, should I say, you are absolutely wrong here. I can assure you if I put up my Dusty Green right now for $600 on Good Vibes, it would be sold before I pushed enter. So have to disagree with you there, mate. Martin Davis, I will come back to your question. It's really good, but we're going to talk about that in a second. Don't jump ahead on our run sheet, please, mate. All right, well, look, I mean, that's interesting, and I think it'll certainly be an interesting thing. Oh, already Dusty Green sold. Told you. So, look, I think that's definitely an interesting thing. And again, as you have banged on many, many times to this community over, the 10 shows we've done, if the demand is there, the market will dictate the value of a card. And at the moment, Dusty is hot. People, Richmond collectors, Dusty collectors all want him. And now there are tons of guys holding him because they know he's one of the greats of the game. So, it's a good one. So, look, this segues a little bit to, there was a big release this week from Select, a couple of releases. So the first one I wanted to talk about was the Dusty Highlight. Now, there's obviously was huge demand for the Dusty Highlight in the semi-final, I believe it was. Just as there was for the Pendlebury and the Ablett and all that kind of stuff. What would be your best guess of how many people have bought the grand final Dusty Highlight?
A lot. I think you're going to have a lot of people that want a card for their own collection, non-Tigers supporters, Tigers supporters. Yep. I also believe there will be a lot of people speculating on it and looking at it as a good investment or a good trade bait for the future. A variety of different things.
So could it be 500, 600?
More. I think more. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. How many did the other highlight of his have? What was the number? Do you know?
I can check that. Hang on. I've got one next to me. There was 401 from the semi-final.
So I think
Pendlebury was a little bit bigger. I think Pendlebury was high 400s, I think.
I'm gonna say around 650 to 700.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
I'll give you an example. So I'm someone that historically, I only buy St Kilda ones, the highlights. When I do the highlights, I order multiple of St Kilda. I'll normally order between 5 and 10 and hope to hit a low number, which I never do, which is annoying, but that is what it is. I'm probably doing myself an injustice if I ordered one at a time. I'd probably get a decent number. Anyway, but the Dusty, this Dusty, for example, both Dusties and the Pendlebury, Dusty, Pendlebury, and also Dangerfield of the finals, I ordered 3 of each of those, and I've ordered 3 of this one as well.
Yep.
And I'm doing it. Well, one of them's up on eBay at the moment as part of the lot of cards for the Card Authority market research, and the other ones, I'm not planning to get rid of them anytime soon. I'm planning to sit on them. So this time next year, or a little bit earlier next year, when someone might have a St Kilda card or something I need, and they're a Richmond collector or they're a Collingwood collector, I'll have something suitable at the time.
So talking about people that are collecting or buying them to, let's use the term flip them, okay? They're not planning to hold them and put them in their PC. Do highlights actually have upside in value? Because I would argue that 90% of the highlights that have been printed over the previous years are worth nothing. Would that be a fair assumption?
It depends on the print runs at the time. I think you'll find that 5 years ago, the print runs of highlights were higher than what they are now. Like, some of the numbers used to be really high. To counter what you've said, my experience is some of them are actually a lot more expensive. And ironically, some of the St Kilda ones were a lot harder to find. There was, the Nick Rewalt retiree highlight, the Joey Montagna, I think it is, retiree highlight. And some of the other ones are actually, I found them quite hard to find, and they would have sold at $15 from Select at the time, and you can't find them for under $40. The other ones are like, bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you.
The other ones are like the draft cards, which are like the equivalent of a highlight from memory. And I noticed the Sam Walsh one sell for like $100. I've seen a Max King one sell for like $100. Yeah, so it goes both ways. I would say you're right though. Like, majority of them don't increase in value, but some of the Rising Star ones and the highlights and the drafts and whatnot, they still.
And look, I bought them all this year, and I did it initially so I could build. No COVID test, Shane. I'm okay. Thank you, though. Thanks for your concern. You don't get COVID with this Tiger time. I'm joking. I bought them all this year, and I'm looking to make a couple of sets for myself. And, I'm sure Bodie is going to be able to answer this question because I've seen him talk about this previously. But I know that there was one particular highlight this year that there was like 130 of them printed or something like that. So in theory, there is a maximum of 130 complete sets that can actually be put together of this year's highlights. So does that mean the full set of highlights next week with multiple Dusty cards in it, Ablett retiree, because Ablett's in it, I think, twice, Dangerfield, do them as a complete set actually have an increased value on the $15 that people have paid for them, or are they effectively worth face value and a little bit?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I'm sure Bodie will be able to answer what his opinion is on it. And some of the numbers of the print runs have been really low. I've been fortunate that some of the St Kilda falls into that category. So even on some of them where I may have ordered 5 of them, the print run is still only just over 100. So at $15 a card, it's actually really good value.
Yep. Okay. Well, I guess then that segues again, and we might even call this show Segue because we're doing it beautifully. Let's talk about the Premiership cards that got released this week from Select. They put up 2 different sets. There was, I guess, a general collector's set, which they call is limited, and I'm guessing that's limited to as many as they can print. And then there is a Platinum series that is numbered to 100. It has a signature in it which hasn't been released yet. Do you think where will those sets sit and be priced in time? The Platinum set, for example, sold out in 30 seconds. Do you know what I mean? Something like that. And as Martin asked earlier, the person that lands the 04 set, would they split that up and sell just the Dusty jumper number on its own, or would it be worth more as a complete set? What are your views on that, and what are your views overall about this Platinum set, which they've never done before?
Yeah, so the Platinum set, look, Selector's often done sets of cards, and exactly like what I'm talking about before with the Scanlon's release in 03, and then again the Scanlon's release in 2009, which was numbered to 400 actually. And there's been plenty of sets, the Hall of Fame sets, and there's a lot of other sets as well that they've done over the years where you have to buy, you can't get the cards individually, you buy a complete set, and every card you get is numbered exactly the same within that set. Historical data and historical prices will show that those sets are worth a lot more. And even when you break them down as individual cards, they're worth a lot more because the rarity of them a lot of it's determined on the basis that they come as a full set, and as a result, people are not inclined to break them down unless they're purely trying to flip them as broken down sets. So it's a really interesting one. It was $299. Is that right? From memory, $299.
Yep.
Yeah, $299. Numbered to 100. There you go. So Anthony, my sentiment is exactly what you're saying. Is why I think that those cards, even though they're numbered to 100, they're much rarer. They're going to be a lot harder for people to acquire on the secondary market, individual cards, than other ones, comparable ones numbered to 100 because they come as a full set. The retail price was $299. The demand outweighed the supply. That was indicative of the fact that it sold out in like 30 seconds again. It sold out instantly again. I even wanted to try and get one. I couldn't get one through. That's that, unfortunately. Why did I want one? And I'm not a Tigers person. I don't know. I wanted one for a couple of reasons. One, I thought it would be really cool, a cool thing to have, because it's a complete set that would all be numbered the same. And two, in the long run, I'm often thinking in all the transactions I do and how I go about my trading cards and everything, I'm conscious of the price of cards are going up. The team that I collect is also steadily going up in value based on on-field performance, and we've discussed how all those things interconnect previously. But because the broader market is going up due to participation, upwards price pressure, the cost of cards becomes higher. It therefore means trade bait and trade value becomes really more significant in the future. So for me, for next year, 2021, because there's a new Supremacy coming out, what I have in my trade inventory becomes really, really critical and more important than ever before, because I would much prefer to be trading something that I acquired in 2019 or 2020 for a card in 2021. So rather than paying the face value of the card in 2021, which at the time might be $600 when it comes out of a box, I can trade it for a card that in 2021 that I have is worth $600, but when I acquired it, it was only $200. So I look at this set in a similar way. I think at $299, you cannot go wrong. The thing's going to be worth straight off the bat, in my opinion, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. I think the day it arrives to someone, there'll be people that put them up on eBay. I think they'll sell at 500. No worries. 500 plus. No worries at all. No worries at all. To address Martin's question about the situation where if you get the full 04 set, it's a really good one, because it's almost like anyone who wants the 04 Dusty would also want the full 04 set as well. So it's almost like if you're going to fork out the coin to pay for the Dusty, well, you're going to fork out the rest, because you would kick yourself for not buying all the 04s from the whole set, really. So I see it's like if you pick up the 04 set there, yeah, you've got the Dusty, which is huge, but you've got every card that corresponds with the Dusty jumper number as well. It's a monster. It's like, to me, it's almost like the 04 and the 01 sets are probably worth the same just because of the Dusty, you know?
Absolutely. And look, I think I posed this question maybe to you on the morning after it, that if you pick up the 01, the 04, the 09, and maybe the number 20 for 2020, you know, you've hit a premium number for a set that's based all the same number. So I don't see any logic in splitting them up. I feel like there's only, 4 or 5 cards that have really got premium value on their own anyway. So absolutely, I would be leaning towards keeping them all together. And obviously, there's heaps of questions coming through here, guys, but they're all sort of around the same genre.
Can you also bring up Anthony Gatt's comment when you get a chance?
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Controller.
No worries.
Okay, this is a really valid point. So there was a bit of a discussion going on the day they went on sale where people were like, well, what can they be worth? And I think fundamentally, Anthony's got it spot on here, is you go back to the absolute fundamentals and you say, okay, well, Richmond cards numbered to 100 from any other series, what do those cards go for? And the reality is a card numbered to 100 Tigers from any other series, and absolutely worst case scenario, you'd be looking, $15 to $20? But otherwise you're looking at upwards of $30 or $40. When you break down, I think there's 25 cards in the set or 22 cards in the set, and the whole set's only selling for $299. And that doesn't even account for the fact that one of those cards is going to be a signature number to 100. $299 is an absolute bargain in the context of what this is. I'm going to reassess and say, like I said, 500 will go easy. Like 500 should really piss in. Like if it gets listed for 500, Gat's exactly right here. You could be looking at something that will sell for $1,000.
Yeah, and look, I'll put myself out here and have a little bit of a throw at the stumps. I can assure you, it's not going to be a good player that signs it. And I know someone mentioned that it might be the coach or whatever. It's not going to be Dusty. It's not going to be Koch. It's not going to be Jack, I don't think. I suspect it's going to be a Castagna or an Asprey or a Grimes or someone in that sort of... no, I reckon they'll save short for one of the predictors for either gold or silver, is my guess. And I think that Select aren't going to want to burn a potential high value signature for their next Supremacy series on effectively a series that they did at $299. They've got to pay people for signatures. I think we're going to talk about this in a future episode, but Bolter's an interesting one, Stephen. You just mentioned that. I kind of feel like they're going to be paying someone $25 for a signature so that, they don't have to spend a fortune. Like, I'm guessing if Dusty was signing something, it's probably $150 a signature for him to do it. And clearly AJ is the ghost that's coming.
Mate, I don't know if you can hear some sound in the background. It's just sounded like someone was shooting a machine gun out the side there, but it's the neighbours across the laneway have old school cars lifted up in their driveway at night, and I can hear them using hydraulic drills and things or whatever they're called. Anyway, sorry.
That's what happens when you live in the mean streets of Glen Iris. The ghetto. So look, I'm putting my neck out there. If it, I'll be happily surprised if it's a nice, a nice signature. Maybe Sydney Stack kebab card. Funny. But I suspect it's going to be just a second or a third tier player, and we're going to see some of the big guns sign stuff for either Predictors or Supremacy. But look, we can talk about this for ages, but another quick one. Do you think now that Select has seen how successful these limited print run team sets are, that this will almost be a trend moving forward, that they may start doing these limited run sets numbered more often? Because clearly it's a cash cow for them on a commercial basis.
Sure. Look, it would make sense that whilst the market is pretty hot and it's a hot time and the demand is outstripping the supply in terms of what the print is, then yes, they would continue to do it. But you also don't want to end up in that situation where we were in the 90s of the big bust because the companies just keep producing more and more quantity of cards. The smart move at the moment, and I think Panini's proven it really well, is doing lower print runs of more variations. And in terms of AFL, most stuff is numbered, and the numbering is what will continue to give it value even as the market goes through ebbs and flows in the months and years ahead.
Well, Jeffrey, good question. I kind of feel like they would now. Maybe they don't get sold to as many sort of outright collectors, but I think there's going to be lots of people that are either collecting premiership sets or think that GWS and Gold Coast may become more of a powerhouse. I don't know. What do you think, James?
I think they would have to do it. I think they'd have to face too much music, so to speak, if they neglected it based on a team not being so popular. And I think at the end of the day, in this market, the numbers will probably get there because non-team collectors will probably buy them up. Something else that's just crossed my mind is, I wonder if any of the breakers have picked up any of those Tigers platinum sets, and do we all of a sudden see a whole platinum set being put up for a break? Depending on what the contents of the package is, but someone has the chance to get a signature. It would obviously be relatively cheap. Could you do a break? Could you do a break with based on the amount of cards that are in it? I don't know. I feel like that's, again, it's a type of as we move further into the future and traditional stock becomes harder for people to acquire and so much more expensive on the secondary market. I feel like we're going to start to see more and more of this type of stuff in a different format, whether that's a break format or a raffle format or whatever it may be.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And obviously, we've talked a little bit about this off air about sort of different things like this. So that's maybe watch that space or watch this space. Okay. Well, look, obviously, it's been an exciting time for the Tigers, and I look forward to the dynasty continuing, and having to pour out a ton of money over the next 10 years as we win another 5 flags. But I mean, it's certainly good for collectors. I think it's good for the industry. You always want the bigger clubs, whether it's Hawthorn, Essendon, Collingwood, those guys doing well, because it's good for cards and there's more collectors coming in and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's pretty good. I've completely misplaced our run sheet now, but I can't remember what we're going to talk about next. Jesus, it really is Tiger time.
I think we can take a few questions.
Well, obviously,
let's do a couple of mailbags, and then we can get to your unicorn hunting, my friend, because I know you're just so flustered because that's all you're looking forward to.
Well, everyone's here for unicorns, so obviously we'll let a couple of questions flow through if anyone wants to certainly ask anything off the different topics. But one that I actually saw a little bit earlier from Sam, I'll see if I can find it. And it sort of ties in a little bit with what we were talking about with Dusty. Yeah, here it is. Will the price of the Dusty card worth $1,100 now be valued more in 10 years' time? You don't want to buy at the high end as there's no return on investment. So, let's take it that it's a Dusty away. What about if it's a Jordan De Goey showstopper or a Pendle's Captain Sig or anything like that? Are those sorts of cards going to be worth 2x, 3x, 5x in 10 years' time? Where do you see the overall growth of premium cards like that going?
So there's a few different factors here, and I suppose the player, the club, how they finish their career, where they finish their career. Does anything negative happen from the point after their cards hit the market within their, the personal level with them that can bring them into disrepute? Things like that will all contribute to it. I think from a broad perspective, when you look at it from a really broad perspective, over prolonged periods of time, most collectibles, including trading cards that are proven to be finite objects in the sense that they are limited in their quantity, and in terms of trading cards, they're serial numbered, so you know how many there are. Over time, they should always go up in value in general terms, and at least at the rate of CPI inflation, basically. So, because the value of money changes over a period of time. So, $1,000 in today's money was the equivalent of $100 20 years ago or 25 years ago in that day's money. So if you had spent $100 25 or 30 years ago on something, you would hope that it would be worth $1,000 at least in today's money, which may and may not be the case. It goes both directions, obviously. So you got to put your money into the right things. It's also cyclical in terms of where that player or where that team or that type of item is within its overall lifespan as well. I'll be honest, it's a really hard question to answer. My thoughts would be Dustin Martin stuff, specifically to Dusty. Whatever you get it for now, it's going to be worth a lot more in a decade, and more than that in 2 decades and 3 decades, unless the bloke goes and murders someone or something like that and completely ruins his life and his reputation. His cards continue to go up, and it takes a lot for someone to really ruin their reputation long term. Something can be impacted for a period of time, but generally it moves beyond that. If there's people look at Gary Ablett Sr. and how collected his cards are, and look at him.
Yep.
He's probably a good example of someone who was a superstar, then did bad shit, had a bad reputation, now is almost viewed as a lunatic, and still his cards go for big money because he's polarizing. So yeah.
I kind of feel like with Dusty, and we'll keep moving because there's heaps of questions coming through. But with Dusty, I think that even if you murdered someone, it's probably going to be fine. I mean, not for the person he murdered, obviously. Just joking.
It'll be like a blood relic card.
Yeah, Hey, I like it.
Yeah.
But I think more if he got caught using drugs, say performance-enhancing drugs, something like that could completely ruin his value of his cards, because then the mystique and all the achievements that he's done suddenly get washed away on a sporting field. But anyway, I'd feel pretty happy investing in Dusty cards. Jeffrey, this is a quick one. We've obviously talked about this. Do you think Select will do another release this year? I mean, a month ago we talked about this. We both thought that they probably would. I guess they've probably had a huge fill up now on Richmond highlights and things. I lean probably towards no. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah.
Have you heard anything?
Yeah. My sentiment has started to. I was very strong in the opinion something was coming. I thought it would be more substantial than the Premiership releases, and obviously the overload of highlights. But I'm starting to think now it's getting too close to the end of the year. They've put out the Platinum set. They've put out the generic set. They'll keep pushing their old stock through. I know they've done record numbers this year on back catalogue. All their 2016, 2017 Series 2 stuff is all pretty much gone. Then all the older Future 4 stuff gone now. Now even Series 1 stuff is all disappearing from their warehouse as well. So,
Yep.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's probably a no-no from both of us. Martin, good question. Now, I guess, look, we talked a little bit about grading last week. I think we're going to do a full show on grading next week. That was what we talked about, wasn't it? So we'll probably come back to that, Marty. Grading is a big, complex issue that, both of us have different views on it. We might get heaps of people to send their questions in for next week, and we'll deal with that all in one go. Oren, good question here from you. I'll read it out because we won't be able to see it. Being a new collector that seems to win absolutely everything, I've come into the hobby and the start of Prestige and now been around for dominance. What do you recommend for someone such as myself that wins everything? What should I chase now? Well, obviously, when you win every single possible card that you ever go into a break and a Raz with, Oren, you've probably run out of things to win. But all jokes aside, Jenks, where would you direct collectors that perhaps have only really experienced Prestige and dominance? Where should they be looking next for their next kind of searches and chases?
So I'm going to say the proof is in the pudding with respect to what people are starting to lock up now in terms of for their collection. So as we had talked about previously, and as many people would expect, we've had a lot of new participants come on board, and new collectors and speculators and investors and flippers and everything else over the last sort of 6 months. Oren is one of those very lucky guys who, as you mentioned, he just cleans up in every break and every raffle and every Raz random and every packet and every box he buys. But unfortunately, not everyone is as blessed as Oren is in that sense. But Oren is a great example of someone new who's come into the hobby. He came in to have a bit of fun during the COVID period, motivated by his kids collecting team coach. He ends up then in some breaks and whatnot, is enjoying the fun and the entertainment and the gambling side of it to an extent, then receives a few cards in the mail. Yeah, that's right. The community, the social aspect, starts chatting with people, then starts receiving some cards in the mail, is like, wow, this stuff's really nice. Starts to realize what he likes, what he doesn't like, forms parameters for a collection. All of a sudden, he's gone from a dude wanting to go in breaks just for a bit of fun and entertainment to now he's collecting a whole bunch of different Essendon cards, but he's quite specific. He wants the high quality stuff that, Oren's even made comment to me about certain cards' thickness, and that's why he likes it and stuff like that. And I think he is a reflection of the broader marketplace, and that question almost answers itself, and it answers itself based on data right now as well, that the reality is, as the new people have finishing off or have now finished off their 2020 sets, there's still desire, and not just new people, old collectors as well, there's still desire to want to continue to participate in trading cards, buying, selling, trading, communicating, thrill of the chase, social interaction, being a part of community, sense of community, all that sort of stuff. And as a result of that, where we see the collectors going, for the most part, is whatever's considered the higher quality product. So people have just had a really nice run of nice signature cards, so they're always going to start backlogging other types of signature cards. Supremacy. You can't look past Supremacy. The reality is for someone like Oren, what I would be saying to him is, okay, well, if you're done with dominance, you're done with prestige, you've done all your 2020, the thing you keep saying to me is every time you get a Supremacy card is, how much better is this? How good is this? How beautiful is this? How incredible is this? Well, the natural thing is to go for Supremacy. And once again, I cannot state this enough times. It doesn't matter if Supremacy cards have doubled in value in the last 3 months relative to other cards and numbering on other cards. Forget about the high quality aspect of Supremacy. It is still, for the most part, in general terms, massively undervalued compared to the rest of the market. And right now continues to be an opportunity that will be looked back retrospectively in 10 years, 5 years' time. And people who enter the hobby in the future will be saying in 5 or 10 years that they'll be going, damn, I wish I was around when Supremacy cards were available. I'm telling you now, and I want to be held to account on this in the future. These cards will be so rare, all of them, from the base cards through to the booklets and the Premiership Brownlow double signatures. Half of them are impossible to find now. The rest of them will become impossible too. It doesn't matter what team they are. These cards are still massively undervalued compared to the rest of the market. And my expectation is as people no longer need to acquire more of the dominance cards or prestige or other stuff, and they all of a sudden are seeing cards at 130 point thickness, foil press numbered to 65, 70, 90, 40, going for available for half the price of a dominance card numbered to 60, well, I think it's a no-brainer, and that's what's going to be happening. It's already happening. It's not what's going to be happening. It's already been happening for months, and we'll continue to see that escalate, I'm sure, over the coming days, weeks, and months. And I think we'll continue to see that spike into Christmas as well. And then I think we see a spike across the board with things like draft pick signatures, captain signatures, Hall of Fame signatures, influentials, footy's finest, all that sort of stuff.
Yep, very good call. And look, I guess Stephen just mentioned something here, and this is talking a little bit about what we were talking about before, about players going off the rails. Benny Cousins cards, especially in Supremacy, they are super desirable, and their price is not going anywhere fast. I mean, another one I can think about off the top of my head is Wayne Carey. The Wayne Carey cards, any of the signature cards there are worth megabucks.
Modra is an outlier. You look at Adelaide cards for the most part, not performing well on field. Couple that with a limited collector base, their cards haven't gone up significantly in the last 12 months. Tony Modra cards, still hot, always in hot demand.
Of course, what a surprise! Yeah, what a surprise!
Absolute luck box.
Yeah,
for those who are tuning in who'd like to play poker and have a good understanding of poker, you need to understand that Oren has never experienced the negative side of variance. He only wins. He just only wins. It's unbelievable.
Must be nice. Jeffrey, interesting one here, and we probably haven't talked about this before. Joe Watson's Brownlow cards. You actually don't see many of them. Like what year did he win the Brownlow? Was it 16? 15?
The one that got taken away, the Peptides Brownlow.
Yeah, well, and then obviously the greatest triple premiership captain there is, Trent Cotchin, received his Brownlow from it. But I mean, that's an interesting one. Joe Watson cards you do not see on the market ever. I can't really recall seeing any at all. So they must be, definitely locked away. Martin obviously has put a big question up here on the back of Oren's question, noting tomorrow is National Checklist Day. How important is it for new collectors to have a chase? Instantly when I saw this, I'm like, finally, I'm going to get a payday from all my logo checklists. But no, there's a little bit more seriousness to it, as Martin's put in his next post. For reference, National Checklist Day is a reference to the Boeing during the World War II, the first NATO checklist, which came down to where fighter pilots were having takeoff issues, resulting in, that all gets very serious, Marty. But, I guess the point he's trying to make is how important is it to have a chase? And I guess I can use that with my logo example. I'm a Richmond collector and a Dusty collector, but I wanted a chase in dominance, so I started collecting logos. Having something to chase and having something to aspire to, is what this community is all about. So I can't recommend it enough. Find something that you like and you want to collect. Simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And just keep adjusting. Once you achieve something, keep the chase alive by adjusting your parameters. So if you're team setting or team master setting and you acquire all the cards you need for your set and you're getting bored, well, maybe start upgrading your numbers. I can speak from experience.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't need to upgrade your numbers because you've got them all.
But I didn't start that way. It was when I got bored and I was like, well, I've got the sets here, but now I should start going for low numbers,
Yeah. How much is it? What's in Brownlow? That's been answered. Jeffrey's saying about 300 to 450. Oh, yeah, Gart, here's a good question, and we'll probably talk about cricket. How do you believe the new cricket release will go? Stark and Johnson SIG cards and limited cases. Obviously, I love cricket. It's my second most loved sport on a data and a fan basis. But I don't know a lot about cricket cards. Do you know much about it?
So a couple of things. Look, I'm familiar with cricket. I think probably most people are within Australia. I've never been a massive, massive cricket lover, albeit Michael Klinger is my step cousin, and apparently he was very, very good at cricket.
He was handy.
He has a signature card. However, cards are booming at the moment. Look, at soccer cards are booming for the first time. UFC is starting to kick off really heavily. My understanding is, and rugby's been massive. NRL cards have been absolutely huge. It's been like the biggest year on record in a long time from what I've heard. I don't dabble in them, but that's what I'm told. My understanding is I was told like a month ago already that the new cricket release had sold out at pre-sale. So at a dealer level, it was sold out at wholesale and at pre-sale, which again is indicative of just a booming marketplace for cards. I think sport in general is always strong and it's culturally strong in Australia. You couple that with the fact that all people want to do is get involved in trading cards at the moment because every few days a newspaper article comes out or a mainstream media thing comes out, and the next thing is people just want to jump in. So there you go. Anthony says cricket is sold out. So that confirms what I'd heard previously, and that indicates then if it's sold out at a sealed stock level, it means there's going to be massive upward price pressure on singles and demand, and you should see it start to explode.
And I think a big part of that too is that if the breakers start purchasing cricket stock and offering it to a community that already wants to gamble, be entertained, whatever you want to call it, that will be a nice circular motion to get people buying it, and single cards are going to be around, then there'll be demand, people will collect, it all snowballs, and next thing you know, we've got a cricket boom going on over summer.
Yeah. And so cricket has changed manufacturers. I'm pretty sure it's gone from Tap and Play, who, look, I can't really comment on it.
Yeah, TLA is now doing it. We won't get
So TLA is doing it now. TLA is the offshoot of Paul Kelly's company, I believe. Mm-hmm. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong.
Craig Kelly? Paul Kelly's
not Paul Kelly, Craig Kelly, the former football player. The ex-footy player, Craig Kelly, separate to having a very large-scale athlete management business, actually, I'm pretty sure his company owns TLA as well. So I'm sure so that's probably given the market a significant amount of confidence in the new product after what I believe was some maybe negative experiences.
Yeah, we won't talk about Tap and Play. People can read the comments if they want to see it, but it wasn't a great experience. What I've heard about this TLA release for cricket is, though, that they're actually almost doing a little bit of a proof of concept almost this season. They're trying out a couple of things. They're not going crazy with signatures and stuff like that. They want to see how it lands, and then they're going to go really hard again in future years, is what I'm hearing. But I'm sure other guys that like Gad and those guys will be able to answer more questions about that. All right. Well, look, we said we wanted to try to get the show to 45 minutes this week, and we're at 63 already. So, I mean, once again, we're shit ass with monitoring the clock, but we're having fun. All you guys having a good time. Yeah, it's my fault. It's my fault this week. But
let's get to the unicorns.
Yeah, let's get to everyone's favourite segment. This is what everyone's been tuning in for. So we talked 2 weeks ago about a unicorn that we were hunting for, a big Essendon collector called Kai. Kai asked us whether or not we could find him a James Hird Premiership double Premiership Brownlow double signature, I believe. They're numbered to 25 from Supremacy. These are a big boy card, a big boy card. They're not cheap. They do not exist. You can't see them. Anyway, we fucking did it. We did it. We did it again.
You did it.
And, well, I mean, I don't deliberately put myself in these situations, but look, I'll stress that the card is in transit at the moment, so Kai doesn't have it in his hand, but the deal has been done. We were in a break, a well-known breaker here in Australia, and it was a celebration break where they were doing a box of Supremacy, and the card came out. And I happened to be in the break at the time, and I looked at it, and I went, what? That's a bloody unicorn. And so sure enough, quickly jumped on, had a chat with the guy that won it, and he was fantastic. He was actually driving home from dinner. He was in Western Australia, wasn't really aware of I guess probably the significance of the card. So obviously I consulted with Kai and spoke to this guy. Long story short, we won't go through the details. It was a significant purchase, and Kai can release the details if he wants. But these two guys are both gentlemen. They both wanted to help each other out. The guy that had the card was really happy about obviously making a little bit of money from it and also going into the hands of a collector. And this was the final piece Kai needed for his Supremacy Essendon set. So well done to all parties involved. It was another fantastic get. I'll be honest, when we listed this 2 weeks ago, I thought this would be a tough one for us to get. But again, thank you to the community out there. You know, the fact that people are aware of this and people notified me about this card, 5 minutes after it popped. So well done to the whole Card Authority family. Well done to Kai. We are so happy for you that you've landed the card. You will no doubt send us a picture when it arrives. And well done to the other party involved as well that helped him out for it. So keep going, guys. We love doing this for you. We love getting submissions, and hopefully we can keep tracking cards. Obviously, I've been a little bit busy this week, so I've been a bit slack getting the new website up. That should be up this week. Finally, my co-host managed to write some content for it, so that's very well appreciated. But we digress. This is what everyone wants to hear. People want to know what this week's unicorn is. So there is a gentleman, Matty Wardrobe, I think I'm pronouncing that right.
Wardrobe. With a P, but we like to call him the human wardrobe. That's fine.
Human Wardrobe. Well, Matty is obviously a very, very big North Melbourne collector. He's obviously collecting a lot of cards, and he reached out to me today and said, sell me your 001 North Melbourne logo. I said, no, I'm not giving it to you. It's away in the logo vault. Well, he said, well, can you find me another unicorn? And I said, all right, what do you want? And he has asked for a Jai Simpkin future franchise 01 card in Supremacy. Now, normally we don't like to look for 01 cards in Supremacy because they're generally in the hands of collectors, and the aim of unicorn hunting is not about ripping cards out of people that have big team PCs. But Matty is obviously in contact with a lot of the other North Melbourne collectors in the space, and he said this card just hasn't appeared. None of the collectors have it. No one knows where it is. So if you know the whereabouts of a Jai Simpkin future franchise Supremacy card, number 01, drop us a line, drop Matty a line, drop either me or Jenks a line personally, and we will do our best to lasso, to rope, to capture, to grab this unicorn by the horn and drag it to its new rightful owner. So keep your eyes out. We're going to put artwork on the site so everyone can see it. But everyone, please keep your eye out for a Jai Simpkin 01 franchise future Supremacy card. That is this week's unicorn. That is what everyone's looking for. So make sure if you've got other submissions out there, please make sure you get in touch with us or get in touch with the social guy that does our stuff. Send him a message, let him know what you want, and we will certainly do whatever we can to get that card for you.
Absolutely. Nicely done, AJ. And yeah, thanks again for everyone for tuning in, and thanks so much for your support. And I'll just remind everyone out there as well, feel free to share Card Authority content, whether it's the episodes or the page link or whatever it is. Share it with all your friends and fellow collectors and other people who might be getting into cards or interested in cards. We're not huge on our own self-promotion, but we certainly don't. It doesn't bother us if other people are. Yeah, that's right. If other people are sharing our content online, it's certainly appreciated. But thanks again so much, everyone, for all the engagement. Thanks for all the good questions. The reality is we could do this for 6 hours every night and still not run out of content here. But we want to savor some more action for next week. So all those ones we've missed tonight, keep them ready to go for next week's episode. And I think we're going to get pretty heavily stuck into grading. So if anyone has any stuff in advance that they want addressed or to talk about with regards to card grading, send that through to us over the next few days. And yeah, we'll aim to get the next one going by this time next week.
Absolutely. And look, just to follow up on Jenk says, make sure you follow us on our channels. We're on iTunes, so give us a subscribe. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, give us a follow on Insta, do all those sorts of things. The more we can grow this community, the more we can find cards for you guys, and we can keep delivering, hopefully, great content, which you guys want. Stephen, very good. I won't put that up there. But look, thanks, everyone, for your contribution tonight. AJ, you've been sensational tonight. You've been really special. You've been good.
Thanks, mate. Thank you so much. And you're beaming from all that yellow shit stuck all over you and stuck behind you and on your forehead right now and on your shirt. And there's just some fucking animals jumping out of your shirt at me and stuff. And it's tremendous, mate. It's tremendous. You are the man. Well done. But thanks everyone for tuning in.
See you guys.
See ya.